Good night, Eden Lodge. Good night, St. Michael North. Good night, Barbados Labour Party family. When it sounds sweet, I see you waving. Now, I come to you tonight still very excited. Y'all feel excited too? I could tell. But ever since we launched this manifesto, I have been excited. And I said to the crowd in support of Tyra Trotman last night, it was last night, right? Because, you know, every day I feel like a different day. Because we owe to all to make sure that we keep this country safe in this next general election. But one of the things I said on that occasion is that this manifesto, even as I was pulling up there just now, one of the marshals said to me, "You got more manifestos?" People are excited about this. And notwithstanding all the pundits that are going to come and say the manifesto is not this and the manifesto is not that, it is a manifesto. It does not claim to be an industrial policy. The government will have that. It does not claim to be, thank you, my love. It does not claim to be a growth strategy. What it does, and one of the commentators said this to his credit, what it does is it is different because it lays out an overall national framework. It is not just a list of policies. This is a manifesto to be proud of, and I've never seen Barbadians clamoring in this way to get their hands on what I'm sure they believe is a piece of history, because it is. Because what this reflects for us as a Barbados Labour Party government, and what this reflects for us as a people, is a time when, you know, we came in 2018 and we had a lot of stabilizing to do. And I know it, Ryan Straw knows it, the Prime Minister knows it, we worked hard on it. We had a lot of stabilizing to do at the time, and quick so we had COVID. And you know, sometimes I think that we forget what COVID was, you know. Sometimes I think that we forget, because the stewardship of this government was such that we got through it. I remember the conversation with the Prime Minister when all COVID was some disease that was all far away. And there were people who said, "But I ain't gonna reach here. Man, them is stop cross there, them don't get out here. Them things don't get out here." And the Prime Minister at the time had a look on her face, and she had a glint in her eye. And those of us who work with her and all of you who know her have gotten accustomed to what that means. And she said, let me get ourselves together. This was months before anybody else was even starting to consider this thing a threat. But we had COVID to deal with. Sometimes I think we forget. Sometimes I think that we forget that nobody on this planet knew how or whether we would come through this. And we had ashfall to deal with. Who remembers the ashfall? You remember looking outside and the place looked black. Are you just thinking about, how is this thing going to turn out? How is it going to end up? And so in 2018, we had a lot of economic stabilization to do. You've heard a lot about that. We had sewage to get off the streets. We had buses to buy. We had sanitation trucks to buy. We had to right-size this thing. And then we had COVID. And that was a couple years of trying to figure out how to reset. And let us not fool ourselves. It was not just about living. It was not just about saving people's lives. It was not just about being able to isolate the disease from the main hospital and going up to Harrison Point and being able to treat people there. It was not just about that. It was also about having a benefit through the National Insurance Scheme that was available to people who were self-employed whether they had been paying NIS or not. It was about being able to pull all of our resources together and say, all right, I know that you weren't prepared. Come, I can help you. I know that you did not put away anything. Come, I can help you. That is what that period was about. It was about saving lives. It was about saving livelihoods. And it was about keeping people's mental health intact. That was a time. And sometimes I feel that we forget that that was not normal. And so now, this manifesto, I feel, gives us a chance. Yes, we've been able to accomplish a lot, and far more, goodness knows, than any Democratic Labour Party government would have been able to do, because I tell you, if they were in charge during COVID, we would be dead. We know that, because we know they don't have the foresight. We know they don't have the understanding of governance, of the economy, of the global systems. They don't have the influence globally. They can't pick up the phone and call for vaccines. They never had the respect of the world. We would have been in serious trouble. But now we are here in 2026. And we have come through so much. And even when we were trying to stabilize the country, we were able to increase pensions. And even when we were trying to stabilize the country, we were able to increase welfare benefits. And I won't want to listen to me good. Even when we were trying to stabilize the country, we were able to return free tertiary education to poor people's children in this country. We were able to do all of that. And now we are here in 2026. And we have a manifesto that sets up what success looks like in this Barbados that we love. But I have only come to you tonight to talk about two things in this manifesto. And to the extent that this document sets up a framework for the country, it means then that those of us who are doing our work at the constituency level also have a framework that we can reflect in our own communities. And so I have come to talk to you. The chairman called it a conversation, and that's what it will be. I heard Kurt having a conversation with you tonight. We can have a conversation. I have come to talk to you tonight about the housing reform program that this manifesto lays out, but that we are able to reflect at the constituency level, because let me be clear. For me, this campaign, these election conversations are about how we continue to deliver service where people are. That's what this is for me. That's what it has always been. And yes, we have to have national conversations, but for me, the national conversation matters to the extent that it reflects progress in people's lives. In Flagstaff, in Clapham, in Delamereland, in Camperland, in Bannisterland, in Britons Hill, in Carrington Village, all through St. Michael's South Central. And I know that the same is true for Davidson. That when we have sat together in cabinet, his questions were always about how does this affect St. Michael North? That is why it is important to have people with a heart for people making policies for government. So I come to you tonight to talk about two things that matter to the people of St. Michael South Central and that matter to the people of St. Michael North. And one of those things is housing. And you know, the thing about St. Michael is that housing in St. Michael is a special proposition. We don't have these large tracts of land that we can go and build 100 houses and 200 houses and say, come, here are the keys. I know that my experience has been, and I have to always salute at the time the Urban Development Commission, now the Rural and Urban Development Commission, for the partnership that we have had, and I know that they have had with Davidson, to be able to bring dignified housing to Barbadians. But what does that look like? You know, we have in small island economies to combine the social with the economic. And I'll tell you what I mean. We have to use social services and the social goods that we provide, like housing, to also be able to generate wealth for a group of people with whom we're concerned. And that is why, certainly in St. Michael South Central, I know Davidson has sought to apply the same thing. I read it in his own manifesto and his own record. He has sought to apply the same thing in St. Michael North. What does that look like? We have houses that we have to build for people. We have repairs that we have to do for people so that they live in dignified ways. And the way that we do that is that we make sure we have the artisans right there in the community who can form a company, who can bring their friends and their neighbors to work with them, and who can have access to the contracts to build the houses for the people in their communities. I remember, and I just left the Moral Hall for a spot meeting, and I was just having a conversation with the people down there. And I remember in 2016, when the Prime Minister and I went to some of these communities in the Moral Hall and in Valerie and in Gully Hill and in other parts of my constituency, and we said to the young people down there who kept saying, man, we want a chance. Man, we want to do something different. And we said to them, this is the way. If we have a program whereby the homes that are being built by the people who live right here, then what does that mean? It means that if I get the job to build Miss Clark's house next door, and she's the old lady that helped raise me, what does that mean that I'm going to do? I'm going to do right by Miss Clark. We all know they have contractors out there that we bring them to do work for us, and they disappear with our money. And they work shoddy, and we can't find them again. I don't know where them is go. But if you have people that you help raise up, that live right there with you, you know that they're going to make sure that your work is done well. And if it is not done well, you know where to find them. You know to go and tell the mother and the grandmother that they do foolishness with your roof and with your tiling. That is the model of housing that we have used. But I want to go further. We have used the social sector housing to be able to give economic opportunities because in a small economy like ours, everything that we do has to be productive. Everything that we do has to be an opportunity to generate wealth for people that live in our communities. I remember saying to the Prime Minister back in 2016 when she asked me to be a part of her economic team coming up with a plan to come to government. Because we were not like the Democratic Labour Party just coming up with pie-in-the-sky ideas and writing them on a piece of paper and going up on a platform and announcing them. We were doing the work. And I remember saying to her, I didn't call her Prime Minister then, I call her Mia. We still call her Mia. Y'all still call her Mia. That's the kind of leader that she is. Auntie Mia too. And I remember saying to her then, this country and its institutions, this economy, has been allowed to fall so far under the Democratic Labour Party that we are going to have to go right to where people are and find them and offer them economic opportunities. And I said to her, this is a model of local economic development that has to happen when a country has been decimated the way Barbados was after the Democratic Labour Party. And I know that there are those of you who will be watching online who will say, oh, but that was 10 years ago. That was 8 years ago. But I think it is important to remember where we do not want to return. And I want you in your canvassing for Davidson Ishmael to remind people where we have come from because we are human and we forget. And when we start to feel nice and sweet again, we forget what that was like. But the model of housing has to be one that puts home ownership and land ownership at the center of economic progress. I will tell you that sitting in St. Michael South Central, one of the biggest challenges that we have is people who do not have title. They've lived on a spot for all of this time. They come and find a grandmother there, or they took care of an old lady for 40 years and then she passed and she said to them, I want you to live here. But they don't have any papers to show that. And Davidson Ishmael was the minister that was responsible for the Ministry of Technology before I was, who started to see a way to make it possible that all of these questions of land title and conveyancing and all of these foolish things that feel foolish and bureaucratic, but you got to do it if you're going to own something in this life. And he was the one who was able to start the conversation about being able to do this stuff digitally. Why is a conveyance costing me all this money for a lawyer, and 4 years later I still can't get the little piece of land that my grandmother left for me? And so this manifesto begins to lay out a program of land reform and housing empowerment that is not just about building a house and giving somebody a key. It is about being able to extend the Tenantries Freehold Purchase Act to modern times. The Democratic Labour Party abandoned the transfer of title to people in this country. The Barbados Labour Party was able to start returning to that promise. To say that, yes, you have lived here and you have worked by the sweat of your brow, and your foreparents have worked on this little piece of land that they gave you, and you have a right to own it. And you have a right to use it for your children to be better. And so this begins to lay out the way in which we are going to make housing and land ownership not little pieces of policy, not NHC over here and UDC over here and something else over there, but to pull it together. Because I feel that in these small islands, in these small economies, the way to really begin to see economic progress, the way to really begin to unstick some of the things that have kept us back, is to unite people with the land of their birth, with the spaces that they've occupied. And so you will see that in this manifesto. These are real things in people's lives. But the other thing that I want to talk to you tonight about is the work that we need to be able to do with young people. And you will see a lot said with respect to increasing citizen safety and community security. There are lots of programs that are listed in the manifesto. But as I said to you when I took this podium tonight, this manifesto really just gives us a framework to reflect the things that we need to do on the ground. I just left Carrington Village. I just left having a conversation with some of the young men and women in the Moral Hole and in Halls Road that we made a commitment with. This manifesto is a covenant. And it is a reminder to all of us who serve you that we made a covenant with you. We made a covenant of hope in 2016 to say what you could expect from us, and I think that largely you will judge that we have met those targets and those commitments made. And now we come to you again in 2026 to say to you that this is an extension, this is a continuation of that covenant. But for me, it goes further, because when I came to Carrington Village, to St. Michael South Central in 2016, aiming to become the candidate for the Barbados Labour Party in the election, and then to become the Member of Parliament, I also made a covenant with those people. And I said to them, you are in a community where people think that there's only so much that you can do. You are in a community where people believe that you have counted yourselves out, but we have not counted you out. It's one of the reasons that we came up with the Trust Loan Program, because it was a program for people that were not getting people to bet on them anymore. And we said, as a government, we're going to bet on you because we know that you can show us that despite what people may say, and we've all had to go through that, because there's some of us that people were counting out too. And we were able to say to them, we can show you that we can bet on you We can bet on your skills, and we can bet on your commitment, and we can bet on your capacity, and we will help you. And so you will see in this manifesto a lot of work that is laid out to expand early intervention for children and families that may be living slightly marginalized lives. To work to identify vulnerability early, to provide support and pathways before people harden. And that is why tonight, in the Marl Hole, I was able to myself announce 2 programs that we're going to do in Carrington Village in partnership with the City of Bridgetown. The first one is something called Real Life Academy. The Real Life Academy, and it goes back to the model of local economic development that I spoke to the Prime Minister about all those years ago. TVET is sometimes oversubscribed, Training Board is oversubscribed, SJPA is oversubscribed. A lot of training programs are oversubscribed, and that's why government brought Construction Gateway, because there's so much demand for people to upgrade their skills. But the Real Life Academy for us in St. Michael South Central, when we launch it in a few months, is going to do at the local level what this manifesto and our policy will do at the national level, which is to bring training right there in the community. And we set up our retrofitted containers, and we do the tiling and all of the other skills right there in the community. And when people leave there, they leave there, they're not leaving there without a piece of paper that allows them to be able to go short there, around the corner, where we've also set up a way for them to register their business and start companies and get access to work. And we have decided that we're keeping it there by us, because when I keep it there by me, I know all of the people from South Central that have gone in, and I know when they come out what they could do. But tonight I also announced, along with the City of Bridgetown, a second program, Project Reset. And Project Reset is a way that we will find young people between the ages of 9 and 17 who are flagged in the system, habitually suspended from school, having perhaps been already involved in minor offenses, minor non-firearm related offenses, and we're going to say, look, come. You're starting this too early. And we are going to engage them and their families to make sure they have access to justice. Because one of the reasons a lot of families find themselves caught up in the court system and can't get out is that they can't get it navigate. We're going to make sure they have access to justice. We're going to make sure that they have access to mentorship. We're going to make sure they have access to structured sport and programs, and we're going to do that right there in the constituency. And all I'm saying to you tonight is that these are the kinds of things that are laid out in the manifesto, and that those of us who work in service at the community level simply need to pick up and run with. But I've come also in my last few minutes to say something else to you tonight. And it is about a man called Davidson Ishmael. You know, I watch the other side. I watch, certainly by me, the person that they're running on the other side. I heard a story, I don't know how true. I heard a story that said that the man that is running against me for the 3rd time now, he ain't tired, getting sent home, a little hurt. But the man that is running against me now, I heard it said that one day he was canvassing, he went in a house, and he dropped asleep. Listening to people. He's supposed to be listening to people. I don't know how he has dropped asleep. And the rest that were with him, you know, they're kicking him on the table. Get up. These people's house. And you know, they wake him up. They wake him up, and he get up, and he gone outside, and he turn around, and he disoriented. You know, the man turn around and gone back to the same house and knock and say good evening. The house that he just come from. Now, Kadir, sometimes you have to know when enough is enough. And sometimes you also have to know when you no longer have anything to offer. I said to the Prime Minister when I first came to political service, Prime Minister, she wasn't Prime Minister then, but I said, I can tell you this. I will serve only as long as I feel like I have something to offer to the people of this country. And I feel like when you have realized that you no longer have anything to offer, it is time to step back gracefully and graciously. But Davidson Ishmael is a man that has plenty to offer. He's a man of great conviction and courage. And you know, I took on from him a ministry that was not an easy one to navigate. And he said to me, I'm going to tell you some things about what's been happening there and what you have to do. And I believe strongly that in this political work and in this governance, that sometimes things change quickly. We've seen it. Sometimes one minister is here today and somewhere else tomorrow. Those are the things that happen in this life. But I think it is always important to demonstrate that we have a unified team. And I say to you that Davidson always shows me that he is concerned about the Barbados Labour Party and the success that we're able to help achieve with and for the people of this country. And he's concerned about the success that we're able to help, that he is able to help achieve on behalf of the people of St. Michael North. You have seen it in all of his exercise programs and healthy living programs because he wants you all to live a long time. You've seen it in all of the community engagement that he does. But you also see it in the way that he passionately defends these communities in Parliament and outside. Now, I want you to be able to help me do something. You listening? Good. I know that when you go out on the street canvassing for Davidson, that there are people that are going to tell you, man, we need an opposition. I want you to set them very straight for me. I want you to set them very straight for Davidson Ishmael. Because we have all seen circumstances where you don't know what I can do and I don't know what you can do. And if everybody decide, for my one part, I voted for opposition, and he decide for he one part, he voted for an opposition, well, wake up the next morning, you might have a Democratic Labour Party government. Let us make sure that does not happen in St. Michael North or anywhere else in this country. These people are not serious. Davidson Ishmael is a serious man. Davidson Ishmael is a man that has the heart of St. Michael North on his shoulders and in his arms. Davidson Ishmael is the man that you will vote for on February 11th. He is here to take this constituency forward. I want to hear you vote, vote, vote for Davidson Ishmael, and let us make sure that we keep this country safe in these uncertain times. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you and good night.